The morning light on Orlin stretched across the field, soft and calm. Birds sang in the distance, and the gentle wind rustled the grass, carrying faint floral scents. It was another day of exercises between the Valari and humans, but for Raxion, it felt like a day full of questions he could no longer ignore. He stood at the edge of the training field, adjusting the straps of his light armor. Today's exercise was different. Instead of a simple coordination activity or shared planning, the instructors had designed a challenge that paired Valari and humans in a friendly competition. They would practice strategy, observation, and response, but the focus was not on victory or defeat. It was meant to teach understanding. Raxion had been assigned to Ilara Hayes again. His heart felt a mixture of curiosity and calm respect. Yesterday, walking with her in the maze, he had noticed something unusual, something that made him question everything he had learned about combat and discipline. Humans, he realized, did not fight to dominate or show power. They moved with thoughtfulness, care, and awareness of each other. As he approached the designated area, he saw Ilara waiting. She smiled when she noticed him, her eyes reflecting a quiet confidence. "Good morning, Raxion," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Are you ready for today's challenge?" "I am," he replied, bowing slightly in the Valari way. "I look forward to learning more with you." Ilara nodded. "I hope we make a good team. That's what counts more than winning, right?" Raxion paused, struck by the simplicity and truth of her words. Yes, he thought, that is what counts. The instructors explained the exercise. The field had been transformed into a series of elevated platforms, ramps, and soft barriers. Each pair would navigate from one side to the other, while completing small tasks along the way. The tasks were not dangerous. They tested coordination, problem-solving, and communication. But success required trust and attention to each other's movements. Raxion had been trained to observe and anticipate. Humans, he knew, were unpredictable, often relying on emotion rather than careful calculation. But he found himself watching Ilara with more than just observation. He was studying her intentions, her expressions, and the way her body moved, not with tension, but with a kind of fluid awareness. When the exercise began, Raxion moved first, stepping lightly on the platforms. He felt the familiar thrill of precision, the quiet satisfaction of doing everything perfectly. He glanced at Ilara, expecting hesitation or clumsiness. Instead, she moved with careful attention, adjusting to the rhythm of the platforms, her steps deliberate but natural. At one point, Raxion noticed her pause, her hand hovering just above a platform. She did not rush. She looked at him and smiled. "Take your time," she said softly. "I'll follow." The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. There was no need to hurry, no need to compete. They were partners moving together. Raxion felt something unfamiliar. He felt relief, not from pressure or stress, but from a quiet sense of ease. The Valari way was about control and precision, but it often felt cold. Here in the human way, there was warmth. There was connection. As they progressed through the platforms, the tasks became slightly more complicated. They were asked to lift a soft crate together, place it on a marked platform, and adjust it so it would not tip. Raxion expected humans to struggle with coordination. They were supposed to be clumsy, illogical, and prone to mistakes. But Ilara worked with him as if she could feel his intentions before he acted. She did not force her strength or act independently. Instead, she mirrored him, adapting and anticipating, yet remaining calm and gentle. "You are precise," she said quietly, smiling. "It makes working together easier." Raxion blinked. No one had ever complimented him in this way. Not for skill, not for ability. The Valari valued results, efficiency, and perfection, but they never acknowledged the effort or harmony in the process. "I appreciate your guidance," he said carefully. "Your approach is different from what I expected." Ilara tilted her head, her brown eyes warm. "Most people expect us to rush or fight to win, but we try to move with purpose. We help each other along the way." Raxion paused. Help each other? The thought was strange. Valari are taught to act alone, to rely on skill, not companionship. Yet watching her, moving so naturally, he understood the beauty of it. They reached a narrow path where a low barrier blocked their way. Both had to step over simultaneously to continue. Raxion moved with his usual precision, calculating the steps. He expected Ilara to match his timing rigidly. Instead, she moved smoothly, adjusting to him as if they were two parts of a single motion. As they balanced, their eyes met. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Raxion saw something in Alara's gaze that startled him. It was not competition. It was not fear. It was calm, trust, and focus. In that instant, Raxion realized something important. Humans do not fight simply to win. They fight for a reason that is greater than themselves. They move with purpose, not to dominate, but to protect, to support, to connect. He felt a warmth in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that the Valari called emotion, though he had never allowed himself to experience it fully. The exercise continued, but Raxion's mind wandered. He began to notice small details about the humans around him. One human lifted another over a platform with careful attention, making sure they would not slip. Another whispered encouragement to a partner struggling with balance. Laughter rang softly when someone made a mistake, not mocking but gentle and supportive. Raxion had never seen such behavior. In the Valari way, mistakes were corrected immediately with strict instruction. Emotion was irrelevant. But here, he saw joy and care intertwined with effort. By the time they reached the final platform, Raxion realized he had learned more than coordination or movement. He had learned patience, trust, and the quiet strength of connection. Alara turned to him, her eyes shining with a gentle light. "You did really well," she said. "It feels good to work together, doesn't it?" Raxion nodded slowly. "Yes, it feels important." After the exercise, the instructors gathered all the pairs together. They praised the groups for their cooperation and calm execution. No one was declared a winner. No one was declared a loser. It was simply acknowledged that learning had occurred. Raxion observed the humans as they spoke with one another. They laughed softly, shared small stories about their homeworlds, and expressed curiosity about the Valari. There was no harsh judgment, no attempt to prove superiority. They simply shared themselves openly. Raxion found himself drawn to one story in particular. Alara spoke of her home on a small planet with forests and oceans, of friends she had grown up with, and of the joy of discovering new things. Her voice carried warmth and excitement. She spoke of challenges, yes, but always with hope, patience, and a desire to help others. For the first time, Raxion felt that he understood why humans seemed so unpredictable. It was not chaos. They acted from care, empathy, and purpose. They brought their hearts into every action. That night, Raxion could not sleep. He lay on his sleeping platform in the Valari camp, staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed the events of the day. He remembered the way Alara had moved, the way she had smiled, the trust in her eyes. He remembered the laughter of humans, the gentle encouragements, the way mistakes were treated as learning, not failure. He realized something profound. Humans were strong not because they were precise or disciplined. They were strong because they cared. They acted for others. They valued connection, and they moved with heart. For the first time, Raxion questioned what the Valari considered strength. Was discipline alone enough? Or was there a different kind of strength in empathy, patience, and purpose? He did not have an answer yet. But he knew one thing clearly. He wanted to understand more, and tomorrow, he would face another day of exercises with Alara, not as a rival, not as a student of rules, but as a partner learning a new way to move through the world. The stars outside his window twinkled softly, and for the first time, Raxion felt curiosity as warmth, not just thought. He had glimpsed something extraordinary, something beyond his teachings, something that would change the way he saw the universe and himself. The planet called Orlan was quiet in the early morning. Soft golden light spread across its open fields, touching the wide green grass that moved gently with the light wind. The sky was soft blue, and a few white clouds drifted slowly above. It was a peaceful place, chosen carefully because it was safe. No dangerous animals, no storms, no strong heat. It was the perfect place for two different species to meet in a calm and controlled way. On one side of the land stood the Valari encampment. Their structures were neat, perfectly aligned, and shining like polished silver. The Valari were known for discipline, order, and graceful movement. Everything they touched reflected these qualities. Their armor pieces were light and smooth, fitting perfectly without any extra decoration. Their steps were silent even on stone. Among them stood Raxion, a young Valari soldier. His posture was straight, his expression calm. He had trained since he was young to show no unnecessary emotion. Valari believed that the heart must stay still like a quiet lake. Only then could a warrior see clearly and act with precision. Raxion had been told many things about the species they were going to meet today. The humans. He had never seen one before. All his knowledge came from teachings and stories. Humans are unpredictable. Humans act from emotion, not logic. Humans fight without order or discipline. These were the things Raxion had heard many times. He believed them because everyone around him believed the same. Still, somewhere deep inside his heart, he wondered, what were humans actually like? What did they look like when they stood face to face? What did they sound like? Were they really as chaotic as the stories said? He did not speak these questions aloud. A Valari soldier did not question teachings, but the curiosity remained like a quiet whisper in his mind. Today, that whisper would find an answer. The Valari commanders gave instructions before the arrival of the humans. Raxion and others stood in formation. The commander's voice was steady and gentle. "Today is not a battle," she said. "It is a learning exercise. We meet the humans to understand their ways. We will observe their methods. We will share ours. There is no goal to win or lose, only to learn." Raxion nodded along with the others. He understood. This was not a test of strength or pride. It was a moment of diplomacy. Yet his heart felt slightly faster than usual. Something was coming. Something new. A signal tone rang softly in the air. A smooth sound like a glass bell. The humans had arrived. From across the field, the human landing transport slowly descended. It was shaped differently from Valari ships, more square edges, more visible joints. Humans seemed to build with practicality first and beauty second. Raxion found himself observing each detail carefully. He wanted to understand their choices. The transport doors opened. A group of humans stepped out, wearing protective suits designed for non-dangerous training conditions. Their clothes were soft, flexible, and not rigid like Valari armor. Their equipment looked comfortable, as if built for movement and connection rather than formality. Raxion watched them walk. Their steps looked relaxed. Their expressions open. They were not silent like the Valari, but they also were not loud. They simply looked natural, not forced or strict. Just living. He had expected harshness, but instead he saw warmth. The human ambassador stepped forward and greeted the Valari commander with a respectful nod. The Valari responded with a quiet bow. A calm and friendly atmosphere settled over the meeting. Soon the training exercise began. The first exercise was simple. Both sides would practice movement coordination in an open field maze. The goal was to reach the center without rushing, while staying close to a partner from the other species. Raxion was paired with a human named Alara Hayes. When they met, Raxion noted her appearance carefully. Her height was slightly shorter than his. Her eyes were clear, bright brown, and held a gentle expression. She smiled when she introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Alara," she said warmly. Raxion responded with a polite bow of his head. "I am Raxion of the Valari. I look forward to learning with you." Alara nodded happily. "Same here. Let's do our best." There was something unusual about her smile. It did not look forced. It did not look like a gesture of strategy or planned kindness. It looked real. The maze exercise began. Raxion moved with graceful precision, stepping carefully and planning each turn. Alara, on the other hand, moved softly but without rigid pattern. She seemed to allow her body to follow intuition, adjusting naturally to the path. Raxion found himself observing her movements closely. She was not careless. She simply had trust, in herself, in the moment, in the process. She did not rush, but she did not hesitate either. At one narrow path, Raxion stepped slightly ahead to guide. He expected Alara to try to match his speed, but instead she spoke gently. "There's no need to hurry. We can walk together." Her tone was calm, as if the idea of finishing fast was less important than moving in harmony. Raxion paused. In Valari training, efficiency was everything. You reach the goal quickly and cleanly. That showed mastery, but Alara suggested something different. The journey itself mattered, so Raxion slowed his pace. Side by side they continued. Without realizing when it happened, their steps began to match naturally. Their breathing aligned, their movements became balanced, not because of training, but because they were simply present together. By the time they reached the center of the maze, they were walking in perfect coordination. The instructors observing them exchanged impressed looks. During the break, Raxion sat beneath a tall tree. The shade was cool, and the wind brushed softly across his face. He closed his eyes briefly, letting his mind settle. Alara walked over and sat down a comfortable distance away. Not too near, not too far. She looked up at the sky with a peaceful expression. "This planet is really beautiful," she said quietly. Raxion nodded. "Yes, it has a calm presence," Alara smiled. "Do you travel to many worlds?" "Yes," Raxion replied. "Our missions often take us far from home. We learn, we observe, and we serve our people." Alara looked thoughtful. "Is it difficult?" Raxion considered the question. "It requires discipline and constancy. Feelings must remain still to avoid mistakes." Alara turned her head slightly to look at him. Her eyes were not sharp or challenging. They were simply curious. "That sounds strong," she said, "but also heavy, like something you must carry all the time." Raxion was quiet for a moment. He had never thought of it like that. Discipline was strength. Strong things did not feel heavy. At least that is what he had been taught. But now he wondered. Alara continued softly. "Humans, we feel a lot. We get scared, excited, sad, hopeful. Sometimes it's confusing. But it also reminds us why we care about things, why we try." Raxion listened carefully. Her words carried no pride, no claim of superiority, just gentle truth, two ways of living, two shapes of the heart. Neither was wrong, just different. And somehow, both felt meaningful. The day continued with more exercises, communication practice, balanced teamwork, and shared planning. Each activity showed a small piece of how humans lived and thought. Raxion found himself noticing the same pattern again and again. Humans did not act simply to win. They acted to connect, they encouraged each other. They laughed softly when something went slightly wrong. They helped without being asked. There was no sense of competition in their movements. Only cooperation. Raxion felt something shift inside him. A quiet change, a new understanding forming slowly, like sunrise light growing on a horizon. The teachings he had always known did not disappear. But something was beginning to expand. A new perspective was forming. Something that would shape the future of everything he believed, and it began on this peaceful planet under a gentle sky, while walking beside a human whose eyes held nothing but calm care. The next day, Orland's fields were alive with movement. The sun rose gently, and the soft breeze carried the scent of the fresh grass. Birds sang as if celebrating the harmony between the two species. Today was another day of exercises, but for Raxion, it felt different. He had spent the last 2 days observing humans and reflecting on their ways, and now he was eager to understand them more deeply. Raxion stood in formation with the Valari soldiers, but his focus was not on perfection or discipline today. His mind lingered on the humans, particularly Alara Hayes, whose calm presence and intentional actions had left a deep impression on him. Alara was already there, adjusting her gear and smiling as she noticed Raxion. "Good morning, Raxion," she said. "Ready for today's challenge?" "Yes," he replied, bowing slightly. I am curious to learn more." Her eyes sparkled with warmth. "That's the best way to start." The first exercise of the day was a cooperation challenge. Each pair was given a task to navigate a winding path that included platforms, ramps, and small puzzles. Unlike before, success did not rely solely on precision or speed. It required observation, patience, and understanding of each other's intentions. Raxion was paired with Alara once again. As they stepped onto the platforms, he noticed a subtle difference in his own approach. Previously, he had moved with exact calculation, expecting every step to be mirrored precisely. But now he allowed himself to adjust to her pace, to respond to her guidance, and to trust her instincts. At one point, a wide gap appeared between two platforms. Raxion instinctively calculated the perfect jump, but Alara simply held out her hand and said, "We can do this together. Take my hand and we'll move as one." Raxion hesitated for a fraction of a second, then reached for her hand. When they jumped together, he felt something profound, coordination that went beyond calculation. It was connection. It was trust. And it was stronger than any strategy he had learned alone. After completing the exercise, Raxion and Alara sat on the grass, catching their breath. The sun warmed their faces and the wind moved gently through their hair. "You're Different from what I expected, Raxion said, his voice quiet. I thought humans acted only from impulse or emotion. Ilara laughed softly. We do feel emotion, yes. But that doesn't mean we are careless. We use it to guide us, to care for each other, and to make choices that protect what matters. Raxion considered this. Care guides action. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. Valari teachings emphasized control, precision, and discipline, but rarely the purpose behind action. Humans, he realized, brought intention into everything they did. Ilara continued, sometimes it's difficult. We make mistakes, but we try to support each other. That's how we grow stronger together. Raxion nodded slowly. He had spent years mastering control, but he had never truly understood the strength of purpose that comes from connection. The next exercise focused on problem-solving in pairs. Each team was given a large, complex structure to assemble. The pieces were uneven, the instructions minimal, and coordination essential. Raxion observed humans at other stations. They did not panic even when challenges seemed confusing. Instead, they communicated, adjusted, and supported one another calmly. No one was frustrated, no one demanded, no one competed for recognition. When it was his turn, Raxion worked with Ilara to examine the pieces. He began to notice how she approached every task with both thought and care. She did not rush. She did not insist on doing it her way. She listened, she observed, and she acted with consideration for both of them. Raxion tried to mimic this approach, but at first it felt unnatural. He wanted to control every step to ensure perfect execution. Ilara gently guided him, showing him that cooperation could create balance without strict control. As the structure began to take shape, Raxion realized he was learning a new form of discipline, one guided not by rules, but by empathy, patience, and shared purpose. During a short break, the two sat under a tall tree, the grass swaying lightly around them. You've changed, Ilara said softly. Yesterday you moved with precision. Today you move with awareness. It's beautiful to watch. Raxion felt a blush he did not understand. Compliments were rare among the Valari, and admiration of this kind even rarer. I am learning, he said. From you, from your people, from seeing purpose in every action. Ilara smiled. That's all we ever do, learn and support each other. And sometimes we teach without realizing it. For the first time, Raxion realized the subtle power humans carried. They did not boast or demand attention. Their strength came from quiet understanding, from shared effort, and from valuing others. Later, the instructors introduced a new activity, a team-based coordination trial where Valari and human pairs would work together to reach a central point while carrying symbolic objects. This challenge tested not only physical skill, but communication, observation, and mutual decision-making. Raxion and Ilara approached the task calmly. They moved as partners, not rivals. When a platform shifted unexpectedly, Raxion instinctively calculated the adjustment, while Ilara guided him to align with her movement, creating perfect balance. Step by step, they advanced. Step by step, Raxion felt his understanding grow. Humans did not act to dominate. They acted to ensure others succeeded, to protect shared purpose. By the time they reached the central point, the instructors nodded in quiet approval. No one celebrated, no one claimed victory. The success was in the partnership itself, and Raxion understood that better than anyone. That evening, Raxion wandered alone to the edge of the field, gazing at Orlan's sky as it transitioned into soft twilight. The stars appeared one by one, sparkling gently above. The warmth of the day lingered in the air, and the scent of the grass was calming. Raxion's thoughts drifted to the humans, their stories, their laughter, their quiet strength. He remembered Ilara's eyes, her calm voice, and her way of moving with both purpose and care. He realized that humans were not chaotic or impulsive. They were different, not inferior. Their way of living, acting, and moving through challenges was built on connection, empathy, and shared responsibility. The lesson was profound. Strength could be measured not only by skill or precision, but by the capacity to care and protect. Raxion's mind traced the Valari teachings he had followed all his life. He had valued control above all else, discipline above all else, and precision above all else. But now he wondered, What was the purpose of all that skill if it was not guided by intention, empathy, and understanding? The next day, Raxion took the first step toward open dialogue with the humans. He joined Alara and others at the gathering area, asking questions about their worlds, their habits, and their ways of solving challenges. Alara shared stories of family, friends, and moments of small victories. Another human spoke of helping a teammate complete a difficult task, while another told of supporting a friend through fear. Each story reflected the strength of connection and the value of empathy. Raxion listened intently. He asked questions, compared their methods to Valari practices, and shared small details of Valari life. Slowly, the humans began to see that Raxion was genuinely curious, genuinely open. And for Raxion, each story, each gesture, and each shared experience deepened his understanding. He realized that humans did not need to fight to win. They fought to care, to protect, and to build trust. By the end of the day, Raxion noticed a subtle but powerful change within himself. He no longer viewed humans as unpredictable or illogical. He saw them as partners, as equals, and as teachers of a new kind of strength. Alara approached him as the sun began to set. "You've grown," she said softly. "I can see it in the way you move, in the way you think." "You're learning something important." Raxion smiled quietly. "Yes, I am learning the true meaning of strength. It is not only precision. It is not only control, it is connection, care, and purpose." Alara nodded. "Exactly, and that is something we can teach each other every day." Raxion realized that this was more than training. This was building a bridge between worlds. Valari and humans, each with their own strengths and lessons, could work together, not as rivals, but as partners learning from one another. And for the first time, Raxion felt hope for the future, a future where different species could stand together, understanding each other and moving forward not for victory, but for shared purpose and care. The next morning, Orland's fields glowed in soft sunlight, the grass sparkling with dew. Raxion stood at the edge of the training field, his mind restless. Last night he had replayed every movement, every expression, and every word of the humans he had observed. Their way of acting was so different from Valari tradition, yet there was something undeniably strong about it. He tightened his armor straps and adjusted his stance. Today's exercises were designed to test decision-making under pressure, but not in the way Valari normally thought of pressure. These challenges were meant to reveal intention, to see how a participant considered the needs of others while moving forward. Raxion's assigned partner, as before, was Alara Hayes. She stood waiting, smiling warmly as he approached. "Good morning, Raxion," she said. "I hope you slept well." "I did," he replied, bowing slightly. "I have been reflecting on yesterday's exercises." Alara's eyes sparkled. "Me too. I think we can do even better today if we try to understand each other more." Raxion nodded slowly. Understand each other. That was a phrase that Valari rarely used. Valari valued observation and replication, not empathy. Yet he felt drawn to the idea. The instructors explained the first task. A series of obstacles would be placed along a winding path, and each pair had to carry a fragile object from the starting point to the end. The object could not be dropped or damaged. It was symbolic. It represented responsibility, care, and focus. Raxion glanced at the humans. He had seen some of them handle fragile things in previous exercises, but he was curious about how they approached this task. Humans were known for improvisation, and sometimes improvisation led to mistakes, but sometimes it created new possibilities. Alara looked at him and said softly, "We can do this if we move together. We don't have to rush. Every step matters." Raxion felt an unfamiliar sense of anticipation. The word together resonated in a way that Valari training had never emphasized. It implied cooperation, trust, and mutual understanding. As they began, Raxion led with careful precision. His movements were calculated, deliberate, exact. The fragile object balanced steadily in his hands. He expected Alara to follow exactly as instructed, mirroring his motions, but instead she moved with a subtle flexibility. She adjusted minutely to the slight shifts in his grip, anticipating what he might do next. "Ease your hand a little here," she whispered, guiding him through a narrow path. "We can balance it better if we align our movements." Raxion froze for a brief moment. The instruction was not correction, it was partnership. No judgment, no insistence on superiority. Just guidance. He adjusted slightly. The object remained steady. And for the first time, Raxion felt not just control, but harmony. Step by step they moved. Raxion noticed something strange. He had trained for years to perfect precision, but the comfort of partnership, the feeling of another being attentive yet not controlling, was more stable than anything he had achieved alone. When they reached a narrow platform, Raxion expected tension. Valari training often demanded focus so strict that even a small mistake could feel catastrophic. But Alara's presence changed everything. "Don't worry about speed," she said gently. "We have time. We just need to move with care." Her voice was soft, but it carried authority without demanding submission. Raxion adjusted to her pace. Together they balanced on the platform. He looked into her eyes, and in that moment he realized something profound. Humans do not operate from fear of failure or desire for recognition. They act from care and purpose. Their energy was not directed at defeating someone else or proving strength. It was focused on ensuring the task was completed while protecting what mattered. Raxion's heart, so trained to ignore emotion, felt a quiet shift. He understood now that strength could take many forms. One could be discipline and skill, yes, but another form was awareness, empathy, and cooperation. After completing the task, the instructors moved to the next challenge, a puzzle of coordination. Each pair was given pieces of a large structure and asked to assemble them while keeping a delicate balance. Raxion expected humans to struggle with logic or structure. He expected them to argue or make chaotic mistakes. But as he and Alara worked together, he saw something different. Alara spoke softly. "Let's try this first. Then we can adjust together." Her suggestion was not an order. It was an invitation. She allowed him to act, to think, to propose solutions, while offering guidance when needed. Step by step, the pieces came together, perfectly balanced. At one point, a piece tilted dangerously. Raxion moved instinctively to correct it. But Alara moved as well. Not to overpower him, but to support his action, matching his movement almost before he acted. Their eyes met. And for the second time, Raxion realized, humans fight and act not to dominate, but to support and protect. The realization began to grow inside him. The stories he had learned about humans, about chaos, unpredictability, and emotion, were only part of the truth. Their strength lay not in dominance, but in intentional care. Raxion recalled the Valari teachings. True mastery comes from precision. True honor comes from victory. True purpose comes from discipline. He realized now that humans had discipline too, but it was different. Their discipline was guided by care, love, and purpose, not rules or tradition. Their honor was not about winning, but about doing right by others. And their purpose came from connection. After the exercises, Raxion followed the humans to a small gathering area. They sat on the soft grass, sharing stories about their worlds. Alara spoke about her home planet, describing fields of green, rivers that reflected the sky, and the laughter of friends and family. Her words were simple, but they carried depth. She spoke of challenges she had faced and the lessons she had learned, not with pride, but with quiet reflection. Raxion listened carefully. He realized that these experiences shaped humans in ways that made them strong in unexpected ways. They carried their homes, their memories, their love into every action. They fought not to win, but to protect what they valued. One human spoke about helping a friend who was scared of heights. Another shared a story about supporting a teammate who struggled with a task. Each story reflected caring, patience, and resilience. Raxion found himself thinking, Valari skill is precise, but it often ignores emotion. Humans are messy in appearance, but their hearts guide them with clarity. Their strength is in what they protect, not what they conquer. That evening, Raxion found himself alone for a moment, gazing at the sky as the sun set. Colors of orange, pink, and gold stretched across the horizon. The wind carried the soft scent of flowers. He closed his eyes and allowed his thoughts to drift. He remembered the moments with Alara, the maze, the fragile object, the coordinated puzzle. He remembered her calm, her trust, her heart, and he realized that he had been wrong in one important way. Strength was not always about control or dominance. Strength could also be about awareness, protection, and connection. The Valari way and the human way were not enemies. They were different paths toward the same truth. Both required focus, discipline, and perseverance. But humans added an element that the Valari often overlooked: care. Raxion felt a quiet smile form on his face. He could not wait for tomorrow. Another day would bring more exercises, more lessons, more understanding, and with each step he felt himself changing, growing, and opening in ways he had never imagined. For the first time, he realized that looking into a human's eyes during an exercise could teach more than any book, any teacher, or any rule of discipline. The lesson was clear, simple, and profound. Humans do not fight to win. They fight to protect what they love, and that realization, Raxion knew, would change everything. The sun rose slowly over Orella, painting the sky in shades of gold and soft pink. The field shimmered with dew, and a gentle breeze whispered through the tall grass. Today was different. Today was the final exercise of the training sessions between the Valari and humans. A day designed not for victory, but for showing understanding, coordination, and shared purpose. Raxion stood among the Valari, his posture straight yet calm. His mind, however, was not focused on rules or precision as it had been in the past. Instead, he thought about connection, empathy, and partnership. 2 days of learning with the humans had opened his mind. Today, he wanted to show how much he had understood. At the same time, the humans gathered, smiles and calm confidence on their faces. Alara stood at the edge of the field looking at Raxion. She nodded slightly. "Ready?" she asked. Raxion returned her nod. "Yes, let us move together." Those words carried more meaning than they seemed. Together. Not competing. Not proving superiority, but moving forward side by side. The instructors explained the final challenge. The task involved navigating a complex course of platforms, ramps, and symbolic obstacles. Along the way, each pair would carry a fragile object representing shared responsibility, and they would encounter challenges that required cooperation, communication, and trust. Unlike previous exercises, this one emphasized mutual decision-making. If one partner moved without the other, the object could fall. The goal was not to reach the end first, but to succeed together. Raxion and Alara stepped forward. As they approached the first platform, Raxion noticed something remarkable. His movements felt natural alongside her. He no longer tried to control every step. Instead, he matched her pace, adjusted to her rhythm, and allowed their combined actions to create balance. For the first time, Raxion understood that true mastery was not only about skill, it was also about trust. The first obstacle appeared, a narrow platform suspended above a soft, glowing surface. In Valari tradition, Raxion would have calculated each movement with exact precision, ignoring any distractions. But now he felt a gentle awareness of Alara's presence. "Step slowly," she whispered. "We can support each other." Raxion mirrored her words with action. He placed one foot carefully, then extended a hand to her. Together, they balanced across the platform. Their movements were no longer separate, they were coordinated, fluid, and connected. At that moment, Raxion realized something extraordinary. Humans did not fight to win. They moved to protect, support, and share purpose. Strength was not measured by dominance or skill alone, but by the ability to care for others while moving forward. The next stage of the course was a puzzle. Large panels needed to be rotated and aligned perfectly to form a safe bridge for the object they carried. Raxion observed Alara's approach. She did not force the pieces. She did not rush or demand control. Instead, she worked with him, suggesting small adjustments and listening to his ideas. "Try this angle," she said softly. "Yes, that's better. Now let's move together." Step by step, panel by panel, they built the bridge. Each adjustment required cooperation, observation, and patience. Raxion felt a growing sense of awe for this method. Humans acted not from pride or desire to dominate, but from care and shared responsibility. By the time the bridge was complete, Raxion felt pride not in personal achievement, but in partnership. As they carried the fragile object across the bridge, a minor slip occurred. Raxion's foot slipped slightly and the object wobbled. Instinctively, he braced himself, ready to act alone, but Alara reached out calmly. "Together," she said. Their hands touched, and with coordinated effort, they stabilized the object. It remained safe, unbroken, and perfectly balanced. Raxion looked into her eyes. He saw calmness, trust, and understanding. No fear, no pressure. Only shared purpose. In that instant, he fully realized the truth he had glimpsed over the past days. Humans do not fight for victory or dominance. They act to protect, support, and achieve together, and in that action they create a strength deeper than any individual skill. The final stretch of the course was a gentle slope with soft platforms arranged like stepping stones. The instructors observed silently as each pair navigated carefully. Raxion and Alara moved as one. Step slowly, Alara whispered. I'll guide you and you guide me. They advanced in perfect harmony. Every movement was intentional, every adjustment mutual. The fragile object remained safe, and as they reached the final platform, Raxion felt a wave of clarity and understanding. He had learned something that no Valari training could teach. Strength is not only measured by skill or discipline, it is measured by care, connection, and purpose. When they reached the end, the instructors nodded in quiet approval. No one declared a winner. No one declared a loser. But Raxion did not need recognition. He looked at Alara and smiled, and she returned the smile. Together, they had accomplished something more important than victory. They had demonstrated understanding, trust, and partnership. As the other pairs finished, Raxion noticed a subtle shift among the Valari soldiers. Many had observed his actions, seen his coordination with Alara, and noticed the calm confidence that came from mutual understanding. Quietly, some began to see that strength could take many forms. That evening, Raxion and Alara sat together under a large tree, watching Orlan's sunset. The sky glowed with shades of orange, pink, and purple, reflecting on the gentle swaying grass. You've changed, Alara said softly. I can see it in the way you move, the way you think. You're seeing the value in more than just precision and control. Raxion nodded. Yes. I see now that humans act not to win but to protect and support. That is a kind of strength I had never understood before. It is beautiful, Alara smiled. And that is why we can learn from each other. Valari have discipline and skill. Humans have purpose and care. Together, we are stronger. Raxion felt warmth spread through him. He realized that this was the true lesson of their time together. Connection and mutual respect create strength greater than any single ability. Later, as darkness fell, Raxion stood quietly, looking up at the stars. Orlan's night sky was filled with twinkling lights, each one shining softly. For the first time, he felt a deep hope for the future, a future where Valari and humans could stand together. A future where skill and discipline were balanced by care and purpose. A future where differences were celebrated, not feared. He thought of Alara and of all the humans he had met over the past days. He thought of the way they moved, the way they spoke, and the way they acted with heart, and he understood. The moment he had looked into a human's eyes during battle, or in the exercises, had changed everything. He did not need to win. He did not need to prove himself. All that mattered was partnership, understanding, and shared purpose. The final day ended with a quiet ceremony. Valari and humans stood together in the soft glow of Orlan's evening. The instructors spoke briefly, praising the efforts of all participants. But for Raxion, the words were less important than the experience itself. He had learned more in these exercises than any teaching could convey. He looked at Alara one last time and said, Thank you. You have taught me more than I ever imagined. Alara's smile was gentle and proud. And you've taught us as well. We see the strength of your discipline and skill. Together we are stronger than we could ever be alone. Raxion felt a quiet joy that he had never known before. For the first time, he saw a world where different species, with different ways of thinking and living, could learn from one another and grow stronger together. As the stars twinkled above Orlan, Raxion felt a calm certainty. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to protect, to care, and to support. And in doing so, they showed a heroism that was quiet, humble, and profound. For the Valari, for humans, and for the future, this was the beginning of a new understanding. Raxion took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill his lungs. He knew that he would never see strength the same way again. The lessons of Orlan, of Alara, and of the humans would stay with him forever, and he smiled, knowing that the journey had only just begun.